Hi there, Mike is here. I use AI on a daily basis, mostly ChatGPT, but I also experiment with other AI models. I was curious to see how this model perform when it comes to research, so I decided to compare the five of them: ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Gemini, Claude, and Grok. Looking at the Google Trends, the interest in all five models has been increasing over time, with ChatGPT being the most searched AI model. Interestingly, DeepSeek had a peak at the end of January 2025, but then its popularity dropped. I think I know why, and I'll explain that later. So how I conducted the test. For my experiment, I asked each AI the same initial question and followed up with additional questions. While the first two questions were identical for all five models, I slightly adjusted my approach based on their responses. The first model I tested was ChatGPT. Let me show you the results. The assignment: finding the license plate. I wanted to find out the license plate of the Lincoln Continental Mark III used in the movie The French Connection, starring Gene Hackman. That was the challenge for all five AI models. The first question I asked was, are you aware of the movie The French Connection with Gene Hackman? ChatGPT responded yes, confirming that it recognized the film. For my second question, I asked, what kind of car did the French frog use? Now, I wasn't sure if French frog was the exact term used in the movie. I believe they actually used frog one, but that was part of my test. ChatGPT didn't find any reference to French frog, so I clarified. I'm referring to Charnier, the man behind the drug shipment. After reasoning for about 45 seconds, ChatGPT came back with, based on various sources, it appears that the French drug trafficker Charnier, also referred as a French frog, used a classic French model Peugeot 404. I knew this was wrong. I refined my question again. The car was linked to the New York Police Department and it was not a Peugeot. ChatGPT responded with, let me check again, and then gave me a new answer, Citroën DS. At this point I was confused. I told ChatGPT, I'm testing your knowledge, and it was not a Citroën. It was a Lincoln Mark IV. Here's where ChatGPT's response got interesting. There isn't any authoritative source confirming that Lincoln Mark IV was used in the film. Well, fair enough, but ChatGPT didn't correct me by suggesting Mark III instead of Mark IV, which would have been the right correction. Instead, it continued providing unrelated information about Citroëns. So I showed ChatGPT a source link and insisted that the car in question was Lincoln Continental. However, it kept saying it was Citroën, which was confused even more. To verify that we were talking about the same movie, I asked who directed the film, and ChatGPT answered correctly, William Friedkin. I continued with more questions where the drugs were hidden, key details from the film, etc., but ChatGPT never reached the final conclusion I was looking for, the license plate number. Now turning on the search feature. Up until this point, I had been using ChatGPT with the search function turned off. So I decided to repeat the experiment, but this time with the search function turned on. I asked similar question, are you aware of the French Connection with Gene Hackman? And ChatGPT responded, yes, it's a 1979 crime thriller directed by William Friedkin, featuring Popeye Doyle. I repeated my second question, what kind of car did the French frog use? This time, within just a few seconds, ChatGPT responded. The French drug kingpin nicknamed Frogman, Alain Charnier, played by Fernando Rey, used a Lincoln Continental. His friend, the TV personality Henri Devereaux, unwittingly provides the car, which is later found to be packed with heroin hidden behind its rocker panels. Perfect, that was the specific information I was looking for. Now I followed up, what model of Lincoln Continental was it? And do you know the license plate number? After reasoning a few seconds, ChatGPT gave me the exact answer I was looking for. It was 1970 Lincoln Continental Mark III with the license plate 18LU13. And ChatGPT even added an interesting detail saying the number was chosen for authenticity. In real life, the tracked car that inspired the film had a plate 18LU75. The last two digits of a plate indicates the geographical region. 13 represents Marseille or Bouches-du-Rhône, while 75 represents Paris. Within just 3 exchanges, ChatGPT, with the search features on, solved the task completely. The second model I tested was a DeepSeek, and I started with the exact same question. Are you aware of the movie The French Connection starring Gene Hackman? It took DeepSeek 47 seconds to generate a response. The answer included relevant information about the plot, themes, Gene Hackman's defining role, production details, and the movie's legacy, more than what I had asked for. While the extra information was interesting, it wasn't what I was looking for. I proceeded with my second question. What kind of car did the French frog use? However, the server was busy and I had to wait. I tried again later, asking the same question, and it took another 50 seconds to receive a response. The model claimed that the car was a Lincoln Continental Mark II 1970, which is incorrect. The Lincoln Continental Mark II was actually produced from 1956 to 1957, while its successor, the Continental Mark III, was made from 1968 to 1971. This was a clear factual inaccuracy. Next, I asked my third question, what was the license plate of the Lincoln Continental? Once again, the server was busy. When I retried later, it took another almost 20 seconds to respond, repeating the incorrect claim about the Lincoln Continental Mark II. Unfortunately, it failed to provide the specific answer I was looking for. This experience left me disappointed with DeepSeek's performance, which may explain why its popularity has declined over time. The third model I tested was Gemini by Google. One aspect I found slightly inconvenient was its two-step process. After asking a question, I had to click Start Research to initiate the search. So I asked, are you aware of the movie French Connection with Gene Hackman? And I received a long, detailed response that included resources. While the information was extensive, it was more than I needed. For my second question, what kind of car did the French frog use? Gemini again provided a lot of information, including a table listing the cars featured in the movie. This was interesting, though slightly overwhelming due to the sheer amount of text. When I asked about the license plate, Gemini delivered a concise answer and even the real-life license plate. Overall, while I found the responses lengthy and somewhat difficult to read, the information was thorough and well researched. This aligned with findings from Authority Hacker, who also noted that Gemini tends to provide a lot of content which some users may find excessive. If you're looking for a well-researched and comprehensive information, Gemini could be a great option. The fourth model I tested was Claude. I use Claude often because its answers are generally concise, friendly, and to the point. For my first question about a movie, Claude provided an accurate and relevant response. When I asked about the car, it correctly identified it as a Lincoln Continental Mark III. However, when I inquired about the license plate, Claude admitted it did not have this information and suggested rewatching the specific scenes to find out. At least it was honest about its limitations instead of fabricating an answer, which I appreciate. Unfortunately, for detailed research, Claude might not always be the best option. The fifth model I tested was Grok. My first question was answered correctly, and when I asked about the car, it cited 32 resources and provided an accurate response, including key details. The level of detail and clarity surprised me. When I inquired about the license plate, Grok referenced 13 sources and delivered the correct answer almost instantly. Additionally, it presented the information in a well-organized, easy-to-read table. The structured format made the data more digestible compared to the other models. I was very impressed with the Grok's performance and will definitely be using it for future research. So final ranking, Grok, best overall, fast, accurate, concise and well-structured information. ChatGPT, with search enabled, reliable and effective. Gemini, comprehensive and well-researched but sometimes too detailed. Claude, concise and user-friendly but lacks deep research capabilities. DeepSeek, the worst performer, slow, inaccurate and frequently unavailable. So this was my experience testing these 5 AI models. If you have any questions or have used these models yourself, let me know in the comment section. See you in the next video. Bye bye.